This is how many wins the Orioles had in 2021, and this is how many they're on pace to win in 2023. For the first time in 7 years, the Orioles actually have a pretty good shot at making the postseason. Now obviously, it's a long season, and pretty much anything can happen between now and October, but thanks to a young, talented lineup and one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball, it's no surprise that the Orioles are playing well. However, nobody really expected them to be as good as they are, and that includes the Orioles themselves. Over the course of recent years, the team has consistently had one of the lowest payrolls among all 30 teams. And despite many signs of improvement over the past 2 seasons, Orioles ownership has been unwilling to increase their budget. As a result, the Orioles have been unable to address their biggest issue, their starting pitching, which might actually be the only thing stopping them from becoming the best team in baseball. But either way, the Orioles are still a really good team this year, and the reason why starts all the way back in 2017. For the past 5 years, the Orioles have not been good by any means, with their last playoff appearance being all the way back in 2016. And just 2 years after that run, the team had their worst season in franchise history with 115 losses, which is only 5 games off from the worst record in MLB history. But the next few seasons weren't any better, as they also lost more than 100 games in both 2019 and 2021. However, despite how challenging these seasons were, it was all part of a major rebuild that would eventually lead to the team they have today. And this is all because of how the draft system works in Major League Baseball. Losing records lead to higher draft picks, and to no one's surprise, the Orioles have the #1 ranked farm system in all of baseball. They currently have 8 players that are ranked in the top 100 MLB prospects, and most of them are set to make their debut as soon as this season. But you might be wondering, how is that helping the team win games right now? Well, the answer is that their farm system has been good for a long time now, and a lot of their top prospects have already been making their way up to the majors over the past few years. For example, their current starting lineup includes 5 players that were drafted and developed within the organization, and it finally seems to be paying off. As of May 28th, the team is ranked 7th in both runs scored and RBIs, with an OPS of 751. Not to mention, they're also one of the more disciplined lineups, averaging 3.7 walks per game, which ranks 4th in MLB. But obviously, this lineup wasn't built like this overnight. It took many years to develop, starting in 2017 with their left fielder, Austin Hayes. Ever since Hayes made his debut back in 2017, he's been a solid bat in the lineup with the ability to hit for both average and power. But this year, he's really stepped it up, putting up career numbers in almost every category. He's currently hitting just over 300 with 5 home runs and an OPS of 834, which is almost 100 points better than his career average. Now, there's a lot of possible reasons for this uptick in production, but it could just be the confidence of playing with a good team for the first time in his career. Now, after Hayes, the next player to make their way up to the majors was Cedric Mullins. After making his debut in 2018, he became the first Orioles player in history to hit a home run in their first game. And looking back on it, this game set the tone for the rest of his career, as Mullins has consistently been a key component in the Orioles lineup throughout the years. Back in 2021, he had a breakout season at the plate, hitting .291 with 30 home runs and an OPS of 878. And this year, he's on pace to be just as good, as he currently has 8 home runs and ranks 3rd among center fielders with an 847 OPS. He continues to be one of the most consistent players on the team, and it makes sense why they've chosen to be patient and build a team around him. Moving on to the 2022 season, the Orioles welcomed their current first baseman Ryan Mountcastle, who was a first-round draft pick in 2015. Despite making his debut in the shortened COVID season, Mountcastle put up some promising numbers in his first 140 plate appearances, with 5 home runs, 23 RBIs, and an OPS plus of 137. However, ever since then, his numbers have not been nearly as impressive. His current OPS plus is just 100, making him an average hitter at best. And while he does have 11 home runs and 36 RBIs, overall, he just hasn't been too productive so far. But after looking at his Baseball Savant page, it looks like he'll be fine in the long run. Next up, and we're getting closer to the current Orioles lineup, with the addition of Adley Rutschman. As a result of the 115-loss 2018 season, the Orioles were given the #1 overall pick in the 2019 draft, and Rutschman was their first choice. And looking back on it, it seems like he was exactly what this team needed, as ever since he made his debut, the team has gone 97-71. He's just a really solid offensive and defensive catcher, hitting .274 with an OPS of 843. And not to mention, he's also walking at a rate 4% higher than last season. So in just a year and a half, he's already proved himself to be one of the best catchers in baseball, and he's one of the main reasons for the Orioles' success. Moving on, and we have the final prospect that's currently on the team, which is Gunnar Henderson. Henderson Dickerson was the #1 MLB prospect heading into the season, despite making his debut in August of last year. However, his numbers are not all that impressive this year, hitting just .204 with an OPS plus of 102. But honestly, I think it's too early to make any assumptions, as he hasn't even played an entire season yet. So overall, after 6 years of development, it seems like this Orioles lineup is finally coming together. But they've also been building up their bullpen, which is arguably the best in baseball, led by their closer Felix Bautista. Through 25 innings, Bautista has an ERA of just 1.44 with 50 strikeouts and 12 saves. His most dominant pitch is a four-seam fastball that tops out at 100 miles an hour, giving him a whip and strikeout rate in the 100th percentile. Overall, the Orioles bullpen has an ERA of 3.06, which ranks second only behind the Yankees. However, while the team shines in offense, defense, and relief pitching, their starting rotation has been a major obstacle so far. Their starting pitching currently ranks 23rd in MLB with an ERA of 4.97, and that number puts a lot of pressure on the offense to constantly bail them out. They've really only had one consistent pitcher so far, Kyle Gibson, who's kept his ERA under 4 through 11 starts. But the others have all been pretty underwhelming so far. For example, their #1 pitching prospect, Grayson Rodriguez, has been extremely disappointing with an ERA over 7 through 10 starts. But what makes this problem even worse is that it could have been completely avoided. Last season, the Orioles had their first winning record in the past 5 years, and Orioles fans were ready for the team to spend money on pitching in the upcoming offseason. However, their owner John Angelos still didn't believe in the team. He was quoted saying that we have a very young team that's overachieved and overperformed. Could payroll be double or triple what it is? Yeah, but we're not there yet. Now, normally this approach is not surprising coming from a conservative team like the Orioles. However, there comes a point when spending becomes necessary if you want to compete with teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers, whose payrolls are consistently in the hundreds of millions. Unfortunately, having a young team full of prospects can only take you so far, because usually there's still going to be some missing pieces that need to be addressed through either trades or free agents. So despite how well the Orioles are performing so far, they could have been even better if they had an owner that was more willing to spend.